Hey there, before we jump into today's show, this episode is brought to you by Gladly, and I've got to tell you, they're changing the game when it comes to customer service. Now, if you try dealing with duplicate tickets or fragmented conversations across all your channels, you'll love what Gladly does. They really bring everything all together. Think chat, email, phone, social media, everything all together in one seamless conversation that really is centered more around the customer and not just a ticket number. And what really caught my eye when I read some of the case studies on their website was just how many of the best direct-to-consumer brands, think like Allbirds and Bombas, Rockies, Third Love, there's a whole pile of them here, they're all using Gladly's platform to boost their agents' productivity. And imagine your team having a complete view of each customer's history, which means faster resolutions and happier customers who keep coming back. And I've seen the numbers. I know their clients are getting incredible ROI while building stronger customer relationships. So if you're ready to transform your operations, you should go totally check them out. They're at gladly.com, and you can join over 300 of the world's most successful brands.
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Well, hey there, welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I'm your host, Steve Hutt, and today I'm incredibly excited. This is really going to be a fun episode today. My ex-boss, believe it or not, from Shopify. His name is Dennis Yao, and he's the co-founder now of a company called The Other Group. Dennis has been in commerce. I started in retail first, but 20 years e-commerce has been in the SaaS world, kind of digital marketplaces. He was my lead inside Shopify, and there he really helped us and himself really to deal with a lot of these mid-market brands, these enterprise brands, really to help drive probably billions of incremental revenue. It's just been such an incredible ride that we have both had. His expertise, really, I know for a fact, in his retail, his direct-to-consumer space, he's learned a lot from me. He's learned a lot from the merchants and stuff that he's able to kind of interact with over the years, and really has made himself a very valuable resource in the Shopify ecosystem. So I think it's really exciting. One thing, too, that I found is that when he made the pivot from Shopify over to The Other Group, it's interesting now because he still has this kind of scrappy kind of startup mentality, and the fact that there's a lot of, I believe, some missing pieces of the puzzle, a lot of times either in their tech stack, in their execution excellence. Sometimes some brands feel they're missing something, or they know they're missing something, but they just unfortunately don't have the headcount. They don't have the expertise to execute on the highest level. And I think that's where Dennis and his two other founders of the business, that's where their expertise is. So at the other side of the table, I'd welcome Dennis to E-commerce Fastlane.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve. As you mentioned, I think the key word that you mentioned was fun.
Yes.
This is one of those conversations that it's more of a all friends catching up than an interview sort of fireside chat format. So I'm really excited for this. And there's a lot that we can talk about and sort of go down the memory lane as well.
Absolutely. What's cool, though, is just there was a lot of learnings from both of us because you brought a certain skill set. Reason why you became a lead in Shopify is because you brought a skill set of your past, and obviously having great people skills. But number two, just having kind of commerce and retail experience, which I think was very helpful, where you could pass that on to your team, which then would help the businesses that we were merchant facing with. So can you talk a little bit about just a tiny bit of context first, so I know your story, but I'd like to make sure my listeners understand kind of who Dennis is, your past, and then leading up to Shopify, and then we'll kind of pivot over into your new opportunity.
Absolutely. So a little bit about my background. As Steve mentioned, I've been in retail, digital commerce, or commerce my entire career, so 20 years plus. when I got out of school, undergrad actually, I was in finance and I worked at Merrill Lynch for a while and quickly realized it's not the world I wanted to be in. So I pivoted from finance to retail. And early on in my career, I did a lot of sales type of roles where I was working with different brands like Casio, G-Shock, Incase, and some of the brands globally, helping them with sales distribution. So more about your traditional wholesale type of roles where I was dealing with department stores like Macy's, Nordstrom's, Bloomingdale's, to some of the chain retailers such as Best Buy, Apple's, and so on. So did that for about, I would say 7 years or so, and started seeing the shift of retail landscape, being that the revenue was really coming from the growth of it. The velocity of growth was coming from digital side versus the traditional brick and mortar, even though at that point, the digital e-commerce was only about 2 to 3% of the entire retail when it comes to sales and revenue. But the growth was really coming from, marketplaces as well as D2C companies. So I decided to pivot my career once again, going from retail to digital. And the first company that I worked for was a marketplace company based in Santa Monica, California, called Society6. And Society6 was part of the larger portfolio under Leaf Group that also owns SachiArt.com, Livestrong.com, that actually started eHow.com. So 2 pillars of business, media publishing as well as e-commerce. I was the head of business development there for about 3 years and went to another company called Art.com, A-R-T, which is the world's largest marketplace platform for art. Was the head of enterprise revenue over there for about a year. The company got sold to Walmart after a year, and the next
That's good.
Well, it's good. It's good. It's funny because at that time when I told people that I worked at art.com, many of them didn't know about the marketplace, and they often ask me, "Oh, like how much did you pay for that URL?" And jokingly, I would say, "Oh, if I owned the URL, I probably wouldn't be working today."
Yeah.
The next couple of years, I call it more of a tech sabbatical. So I actually went back to my alma mater, USC, and was teaching there, overseeing a center for supply chain. But after that, I spent the next 3 years where you and I also worked together at Shopify, leading the MS, Merchant Success Organization from the West Coast. We were really servicing a lot of merchants in that mid-market to enterprise segments, worked with a lot of great clients. Dr. Squash was under your portfolio, True Classics, Warner Music Groups, and such a great time during that time in a sort of unpredictable period of COVID.
Right.
But as everybody know, that was when e-commerce really just catapulted when it comes to growth. And so I learned a lot, not only from a platform product perspective, but also just what commerce should evolve into or could evolve into just during uncertain times. So spent 3 years there and actually spent the next year at a video commerce company called Firework. So learned quite a bit on videos, video infrastructure, and how that could complement growth for a lot of enterprise merchants. Now being in the other group now, so I'll explain a little bit more. The other group is a digital transformation consultancy for omnichannel brands. So we help a lot of brands understand not only from, growth perspective, whether it's pay acquisition to retention, but also strategically how they fit into the new world of omnichannel. And these opportunities really came about passively because just being in an ecosystem for a while, whether it's digital or retail, I think people were nice enough to reach out to me and ask me for help. And those things I think the relationship that I had built throughout the 20 years really came to fruition at this point to I would say, go back to entrepreneurship and build the other group and help brands and as well as company navigate these sort of uncertain times of commerce, but at the same time, very exciting. That's kind of how it came about.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know what, like when you talk about the omnichannel, I mean, that's one of the kind of key topics that really come up a lot, even when I was at Shopify, but even as of now, because a lot of people kind of put their flag in the sand with Shopify, and that's a really good starting point, but they do realize that just once again, it comes down to, do you have the expertise, or are you making it urgent and important to want to execute on your omnichannel strategy. If it means getting out into marketplaces, are you on Amazon? No, I'm not. Why not? They don't have to market. You got to be on Amazon. Okay, well, at least part of your catalog should be. Or what's going on in social? Are you doing, how well are you executing on social media? Are you doing live selling? There's so many angles down the social media rabbit hole of helping drive net new customers. There's the retention marketing side. Yes, there's, I don't want to get too tactical about the acquisition challenges that are going on in commerce right now, just because there's massive competition. And unfortunately, because of this cookie issue and only having a 7-day acquisition window or attribution window, it gets really challenging for a lot of brands. How do I drive net new visitors? But the retention side, when a brand, and I think these are the kind of brands that you work with, when they have product market fit and they're selling, but are they really maximizing their revenue? And part of it is the retention marketing side of the business. How do I get the second and third sale? How do I get raving fans? So this is kind of like my pivot question that I kind of want to ask you a bit. Like, what have you seen, because you have so much boots on the ground and experience and stuff in all parts of the retail, the wholesale, and even like people acceleration, working as a lead and stuff in Shopify. Like, what are you seeing today right now as the opportunity for brands that are listening today?
Yeah, exactly where you were kind of going as you were kind of explaining, right? Like where the world of sort of e-commerce or growth is coming. It's really interesting to me. And let me kind of start a little bit more on the philosophical side and making parallel comparison between B2B and also D2C, right? On the B2B side, like as a sort of software company, if you look at it from the standpoint of revenue organizations such as Shopify or any other technology company software, in the commercial department, you often have sales teams, you have marketing teams, you have customer success teams, and you have partnership teams and solution engineer and so on, if you're big enough. On the D2C side, you're acquiring customers in, obviously various ways and various channels. But if you want to bucket into like a big sort of pillars, it's acquisition and it's retention. So if you start looking at parallel where the world is going, it's expensive to acquire net new customers on the B2B SaaS side of it. We all know that. This is outbound, right? It's outbound, outbound. And because you and I were in customer success organizations or merchant success organizations, even during our times there, we start seeing the shift of the role as well as responsibilities and also expectations from the customer success side of it. It's no longer about retaining customers and making them happy, but it's also bringing value across the board internally as well as externally to them. So that could mean upsell, resell, making the right recommendation at the right time. So taking that same idea into the retention of D2C world, it's the same thing, right? The question is, for a lot of brands, do they have raving fans? And what does raving fans mean? And does that equate to just repeat purchases? Or does that equate to how many of the sort of the 5-star reviews they leave on the website, on your product? And, let's just say if you have some events you're hosting, do they show up to those events? Are they also the amplifiers for your brands, right? So I think more and more, that's where the world is going. As it becomes more expensive to acquire net new customers, the retention side is even more important. I feel like the retention, and I may be biased here, but I feel like retention, also customer success, didn't get enough credit back in the days. But now people are understanding that, look, these are in especially tighter times, tighter economic times, it's the customers that you have. You need to take care of them and you need to make sure that you're servicing them in all the different ways that they need to be served, because they are going to be your champions and they are going to be influencers. And then to take it a little bit more on the business sort of context, these are going to be, the AOVs and also the margins that you get from these customers, they're going to be a lot higher than the net new customers that you acquire.
Yeah, this is so true. One thing I've learned a little bit through you, a little bit through my own kind of school of hard knocks, but some of the things on the retention side, I think it really does directly impact for sure profitability, because you don't have to drive a cost bracket like a CPC to get a brand new customer. You already have one. So it builds the profitability, the growth, kind of long-term success comes out of the business by understanding these kind of loyal customers. And so I think I've also learned I did a podcast maybe a couple weeks ago about the fact that they're saying acquiring new customers is very expensive. It often is 5 to 7 times more costly than retaining existing ones. And so we talk about this lifetime value. We talk about this repeat customer rate. I know studies definitely, I don't have the exact stats, but I know that loyal customers spend a lot more money, 60, 70, 80% more than new ones. Some people just are kind of one and gone, but these loyal ones, that's where the interesting kind of like incrementality comes into it, where all of a sudden, wow, if you could figure out who these people are and then how do we bring them down the funnel so they become these, as you call them, raving fans. So it's really interesting.
I totally agree. I think this also affects the way that people or the marketers or CMOs are right now allocating their resources, right? Back in the days, they still do so, of course. Like paid is still a very, very important part of acquisition, and it's always going to be there. But the question is, there's a lot of brands that right now are kind of looking back into how much they're spending on brand marketing, how much they're spending on, social, how much they're spending on the top of the funnel awareness, because all those things matter, but they seem to not matter as much back in the days when pay was driving majority of the growth, where the world of, D2C of XYZ was fairly popular because you can really literally drive the top line growth just from paid without anything else. But so I think there's a full circle moment to that. Branding used to be very important, but it just got deprioritized. But that's coming back because once again, just with the conversation we're having in terms of the importance of loyalty, importance of having that sort of community, right? Like you want to build through online but through in-person experience as well. Like all those things matter a lot more now because as people know, like those are stickier when it comes to long-term value.
Yeah, I agree with that too about the loyalty. I think it does definitely obviously boost the repeat purchases, but I think it also, it kind of not forces, but kind of makes customers kind of less likely to want to switch to competitors. And I think that's the part of the brand building kind of loyalty side of this. You getting good word of mouth to their friends and family, getting that organic growth that way. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's another topic that once again been coming up on my show. A lot of it is around the social commerce side of it. I know Shopify has made some very strategic kind of connections with a lot of the social platforms, being TikTok and Pinterest and quite a few others. And so what's interesting is that there's the social commerce side of, and that's where these fans come in and these influencers come into the equation and stuff like that, and a nice tight connection to Shopify. But then there's also like the video shopping side. And so I'll let you talk about either or both, but like, what are you seeing on the ground right now from a social commerce? I still would put video and selling on live video is an interesting opportunity. So it's huge in China and slowly making its way now into North America with lots of great partners and once again, tight connections to Shopify. So just like to hear your side of kind of what you're seeing.
I'm really glad you framed the question that way. You didn't include video commerce as part of the social commerce. I think just to even start from the very sort of top level, right? I think there's still a lot of people who confuse video commerce.
They are.
Video commerce and social commerce, as you know, right? Social commerce is what we would often see from TikTok shop, like TikTok or Instagram, like literally a social media type of a social driven commerce purchases. Video commerce oftentimes is what you see in Asia, in China, in Europe, live shopping.
Yes.
Or now there are a lot of companies right now that are providing tools and software tools for shoppable videos. And so they're fairly different in a sense. Well, not in a sense, but they're certainly very different. Social commerce are definitely, I would say it's growing quite a bit. But from what I've seen so far, some of the product categories are doing really well, at least currently on TikTok Shop, as an example, are lower AOV items and also in the categories of beauty, wellness. So smaller type of items, I would say. Right? And then the video commerce space, which was a space that I was in, so I have a little bit more context. You have brands and companies such as L'Oreal, such as Williams-Sonoma, such as Gap, and some of the big brands right now are trying to figure out, one, how do they capture the utilitarian benefit of videos onto their website, right? So we all know videos convert or videos actually are much more engaging than static photos.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a very sort of top philosophical like understanding of that. So the question then is like, how do you bring that sort of social video experience onto the website? And that's what a lot of these companies do right now, whether it's VideoWise, Firework, Tolstoy, a few other players in the space. They help brands bring the content, whether it's on social media or any other channel, embed them onto the website and make those videos shoppable with the products in the product cart. That's kind of like what people call shoppable videos. And then there's another component of the live streaming, which is a little bit more popular in Asia. A lot of creators and influencers use them working with brands to do a lot of live streaming. That's also growing. And I've seen them done very successfully with a lot of beauty companies. Because one, it makes a lot of sense. When you're purchasing beauty products, you kind of want to understand like what it looks like and perhaps how the product actually looks on certain type of skin, certain color skin, or certain type of people that resonate that are similar to you, right? So there's a lot of explanation that need to be done. And also another type of category of product or industry that lends really well to live shopping is also some like consumer electronics, I would say. Because if you think about it, back in the days, and they still do it, Best Buy, people go to Best Buy for expertise. Because you may go to Best Buy to look for a home speaking system. And you want to go in because the people work there, they understand the sound quality, they understand technical aspect, the technical specs and everything else. And that gets lost in digital world. So the live streaming kind of gives that aspect of explanation for complex product that needs a little bit more description. Also, from live streaming, there's a lot of chat functions. So you form a community that way as well. To wrap up what I was saying and to answer your question, one is where I see the world is going is that a lot of merchants and brands I've seen that are deploying the video commerce strategy, they've been successful, but not across the board. One, you do need some resources because a lot of times the first question that people ask is, well, I don't have the internal capability or resource to create content. What do I do? Right. And I think that's where a lot of agencies come into play. They can provide the content and service aspect of it. And there are a lot of agencies out there that can do great content now. Also with the growth and advent of AI, I think that's going to make it even lower lift when it comes to deploying video commerce. Two is really to understand like how, depending on the brand, certain brands are very brand image conscious. Having a carousel may not be the best way to implement the feel and the look of the brand. So I think there's a little bit of that to understand like what the digital product look like onto the website. And then there are some great companies that do that. You know, the VideoWise is also another one that does it really well with a lot of great image or fashion or lifestyle type of brands. Three, I think even though there's a lot of growth potential, what I've seen is we're still at the early inning when it comes to the adoptions of video commerce. I would say probably we're a second inning, right? There's still a lot of education in the A moment to be done to a lot of companies to say, what does this actually mean and what does it require and what are the ROIs and the outcomes that's going to come out of that? So I'm bullish where it's going. It's moving slowly, but it's moving, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. So still keeping on this technology kind of topic, because another one just probably going to be like, you know, Gen AI is probably going to be the keyword of the year, just with OpenAI doing its thing and cloud and Gemini and actually even recently, I'm sure you've read this, but just that leaked memo and stuff inside Shopify about wanting headcount and stuff. If AI can do the job, okay, well then why are you asking for new headcount? And so Toby and Harley have both been pretty frank about just the power of AI. And I'd argue that maybe that was one of the early signs a couple of years ago, maybe why merchant success team and other teams were slowly kind of filtered out of Shopify, because there's a larger scalable, more profitable way of using AI and large language models to assist brands with the right information at the right time. And I understand kind of maybe at the time when it happened, it didn't feel great. But then now, years later, I think we both look back and go, okay, that was a good move for Shopify because of these reasons, because now we get to use these tools. And so my question to you is that like what are you seeing now on the ground as far as AI and AI adoption? And some of the topics that have been on my radar, even through interviews lately, are things things about what AI can actually do to help a business. And I think a lot of people are paralyzed a bit, if it's a personalization engine, like on-page kind of things, or if it's improving your customer support or inventory optimization. I think there's a lot of stuff, even pricing, I think you can even do now with AI. So I just want to throw back to you. What are you seeing right now from an AI or AI adoption? Are there any kind of key areas that are interesting, that are up and coming, or people are having challenges with? Because I think that's kind of where your agency kind of fits into the market. Is you're really being a fractional CMO and kind of head of e-commerce. You're kind of seeing the adoption of the good businesses and good brands, but then others are not doing things that maybe they should. And you can kind of see the forest for the trees, so to speak. So I'll let you, I'm just curious to see on your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so it's such an exciting field, right?
Oh, yeah.
It is truly, I really do believe this is the period where we see that sort of paradigm shift is going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But there's no, still a little foggy. It's still a little cloudy. There's no clarity across, like what's working or what's not. What I can talk about is this. So I'm also having, for mid to long term, like I don't imagine the other group as a huge consultancy. I've seen companies now, and I'm sure you have as well, that have been able to build up to $10 million ARR within 3 months with just 4 engineers. And I think the same thing's going to happen across the board with every single type of company, right? Whether it's a service-based or product company. So that's the first and foremost. What I've seen from adoption standpoint is internal efficiency and process. Sort of taking out a lot of, busy work, whether it's, we all use ChatGPT for writing emails or writing content, or even processing improvements of accounting and also HR. At least I know those are 2 functions where a lot of organizations are making changes and utilizing, Gen AI for legal as well. So the other side of it, which is more relevant to like marketers and also e-commerce, is that, a lot of people are using Gen AI for copywriting and also for image creation. And I've seen a lot now for ad makers. Right. So I think what's really interesting, we haven't seen the full funnel adoptions of yet. But well, let me preface by saying this. From adoption standpoint, I've seen mostly like SMB companies that adopt those types of tools or just trying them out using Gen AI, video content or ad makers, where the machine really learns the sort of historical data, what's working or what's not working. And also, crawl around to understand like competitive ads as well, and taking all those sort of data points to create a sort of a content and ad content that actually makes sense. So I think we're there yet. But what I've seen a lot of brands also provide the feedback was, well, okay, that's great, but how do I take the ads or the content assets and then build the campaigns around them and also test them multiple testings at the same time, and be sure that I can calibrate my pay spend accordingly in sort of a real-time format. We're not there yet, right? I think we're still at that sort of content creation stage. We're not at the stage where the AI can actually do the execution and strategic work and making alternative changes in real time. So, and from a corporate standpoint, big companies, I've spoken with, not only just e-commerce companies, brands, but also companies like BlackRock and other sort of bigger, I would say, true enterprise type of companies. For them, it's not so much about, acquiring companies or looking at adopting like what's outside, but more so working with AI engineers to build internal products. And a lot of times, first and foremost, is to streamline the efficiency process is what they're doing. And that could be functional, like we talked about, whether it's HR, accounting, legal. Some of the more document or data heavy type of jobs, those are the ones that a lot of these big companies are hiring, like exterior talents and service providers, and to come in and build something proprietary.
So interesting. The other thing I find too is that, I know we talked about the cost of driving net new, the acquisition side of the funnel and how expensive it is. I found with AI, I'm finding brands now are choosing, a little bit more of an omnichannel approach, more of an organic approach. And that could be through content production and building a community around, maybe not hard selling the product, but it's more around just educational content. Because I think looking beyond just the keywords for a business, like the branded keywords, going quite a bit wider. And I can see brands now using like AI assisted tools for writing, and then really consistently writing in their blog number one, just to continue to show up and be in the space that you serve, but maybe not necessarily directly selling, but more about building a brand and a feeling around the business. And part of it is just, through AI assisted tools. Now, you still has to be the human element. You're right. It's not fully autonomous. But, and even in my own business, right? I mean, I'm using some AI assisted tools, but with a lot of human oversight. And I see a lot of Shopify businesses now really, because I've interviewed a lot of the businesses and the technology partners now that create blogs and give a WordPress kind of look and feel, but inside Shopify, but they still have to execute with tools and come up with the concepts and ideas, but consistently publishing. Some brands are getting into podcasting now too, and building YouTube channels out too. It's just back to your whole thing from the beginning. It's just like, it's this omni-channel kind of opportunity that's out there. And I think AI is helping that. It's just like, which one do you want to slice off? And I think that's where your group kind of fits in the mix. It's like, hey, are you using any AI tools currently? Because there's a lot of areas where you can use AI. And we talked about that, the personalization and the customer support, inventory and pricing and, ad creation. And I'm sure there's even automation in marketing too that's out there too. And so knowing all these things, that's kind of where I think you fit in the mix, where you kind of holistically sit back a bit and going, okay, where are you today? Because we know all these things are available, but let's talk about kind of like, what can you execute on with Wool Group can kind of help them with these, or make some recommendations of partners or other agency partners that might be able to assist. And so, it's a really wild industry we're in right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're absolutely correct. I think that's where our role, and also just in the short time that we've been around, like we've been accepted, fairly well by the market. And there's been a lot of interest, in conversation and also engaging with our services is exactly right? It's right now in the world, omnichannel, and also the abundance of content, the abundance of information, the abundance of supply, sometimes it's harder to kind of decipher like what's right and what's wrong, especially specific to a certain type of business. Not all the omnichannel brands are built alike, not only omnichannels, are the same stage. So the question is, as you and I know, even around Shopify ecosystem, there are thousands of agencies. I think somebody had mentioned to me like there's like 6,500 agencies around Shopify ecosystem, right? So if you're not in the know, or you don't understand that how the ecosystem works, where do you start? You can do some Googling, but seems like everybody's got great reviews these days. So who do you know that's good for what? I think that's a very, very important issue. It's a very acute issue as well across the board in the world of the internet. How do you decipher the signal from the noise, right? So I think that's where we can come into play as experts to say, well, this is what you should be doing. Omnichannel wise, wholesale, retail, D2C, marketplace. Okay, we all know those channels exist. According to your product and also your brand and also what you're trying to achieve, how do you allocate the resources across the board? And also, how do they play together, right? So I had a conversation with a CRO from a CPG company, and they have very different product differentiation and allocation for different channels according to the margins. And I think, it's a good way to think about it. You can hear from a margin perspective, or you can think about it from exclusivity, scarcity of the product, or you can think about it from a customer standpoint, like what type of customers may shop in certain channels. So, but to have a holistic view though, it's almost like, do you have that strategic trusted partner who can look at it from revenue, from omni-channel perspective? And I think that's kind of where we come in and bringing, we can't do everything, of course. We're really strong in retention, but, for all the other stuff, like we bring in our trusted partner and agencies around Shopify ecosystem to support and help the clients.
Yeah, it's nice that we have this kind of frontline knowledge and stuff. I think that's the unique thing. I think that's the reason why I made some strategic recommendations while I was in Sound Shopify, just because I had direct communication with them and I know what great looked like, and I wasn't going to make a bad decision, I don't believe, because it would look bad on me. I wouldn't maybe say, hey, you should try these people, but I would say, here's two choices I think you might want to start vetting these people because they've had these other campaigns that they've been quite successful on, whatever that looks like. And so that's been quite successful. One last point I want to make too about the whole AI thing, which I thought was quite interesting, and building this community. And I want to hit this home too, because I think this is another opportunity that people listening today, some kind of free takeaways is that one business that I managed, Bulletproof Coffee, for example, and one of the things that, and you know this because we talked about them before, was that one of the things that was quite a standout feature of Bulletproof website was the fact that their blog generated over 75% of its organic traffic, all because it was very tailored towards whatever stage the customer's journey was. They had a lot of things. They had quizzes, they have a newsletter, but they were also really subtle a bit. They were there to build a community, similar to what Gymshark is doing, a few others. But it's interesting where they build this community, but subtly kind of like you drop a few things in here that, this product, you're having this ailment or this problem, let's talk about it. And they cite everything correctly. They do it really, really, really well. Oh, and by the way, if you're interested, like we have this MTC oil over here that might help you. You might want to take a look at it. And so I just want to throw it out there that there are some really great writing tools and some great, like Bulletproof is one. Gymshark, I think, does a phenomenal job in helping workout routines and healthy living and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and by the way, we have like awesome clothes if that's kind of what you're looking for. There's other company, Death Wish Coffee. I have a list here of the brands that I've had on. They've talked about, even Manscaped. Once again, men's grooming and hygiene. So interesting. Who the hell wants to write about this? But their blog drives an incredible amount of value to their audience through SEO and social media, really to amplify their business. So I just want to throw it out there that the AI-assisted tools can really help build a business and get this long-term kind of value through organic traffic back to your main site.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can just add one more note, as you were kind of talking about this, I'm just kind of geeking out on how AI can really like drive e-commerce, right? I haven't really started playing around this, but I've heard a few people now that have tried, as they were saying, now a lot of searches are coming from ChatGPT, including purchase behaviors, including stuff that people are looking for, right? So the question is now, how do you shift the sort of the SEO model onto different language models? And also, how do you ensure, if somebody type in ChatGPT, say, well, what would you recommend as the go-to brand for, different mugs? How do you ensure, as a brand, that you are being, you're being brought up, at least one of the top options? So I think that's really interesting just from a user and also customer behavior shift perspective. So obviously using AI as a tool, but now looking AI also as a channel of growth.
Oh, 100%.
From that standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know what the word is. I don't know if it's like Gen AI SEO or whatever it is, but yeah, I've seen it too in my own analytics that I have ChatGPT coming in, and so I think that's the term. I think it's Gen AI SEO. But in any case, it's interesting about how do you optimize your store, like your product descriptions and your blog and your meta tag. There's some technical things, but the end of the day, I think it's all about if it's using Jasper or ChatGPT directly, scale. Now, there's a million different tools and things that are out there that can really be a good co-pilot for you to help you do the research, on-page optimization, and all of a sudden, when people are looking for top of funnel, what is the best shoe for flat foot? And then all of a sudden, then they're going to have some, and if you've written about that and you're authoritative enough, then all of a sudden there's going to be a link in there in ChatGPT to actually buy it. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. There's another emerging market.
Yeah, I know. That in itself is a podcast episode, right?
It is.
But yeah, let me know if you ever get some expert to talk about it. I would love to learn about it for sure.
Yeah. No, I'm going to do that. Gen AI SEO, I think, is going to be a really good topic. I'm going to note that one down. I'm going to find some people that are really doing it well and the platforms that are doing it well as it relates to Shopify businesses. So before we wrap up, I'm really enjoyed this conversation. It's so interesting, so full circle. It's great. I'm excited that it's so interesting. It's like myself, you have this past and you're kind of parlaying all of the past knowledge and experience and kind of bringing it forward and saying, okay, well, here I am. I have all this different knowledge from finance to retail to people lead to commerce, and now, having your own kind of consultancy business and then knowing all the greatest partners, both in marketing and tech. I think it's really interesting. You're positioning yourself quite interesting. I'm not tooting your own horn. I think it's interesting that you had this realization that, holy smokes, I kind of know what I'm talking about here because I've been down this rabbit hole for so many years. So and throw the baton back to you and saying, hey, like those that are listening today, if they feel that they might be missing out either something to do with their tech stack, something to do with their channel marketing efforts that are not great, the omni-channel we talked about, or if they feel they're missing out on wholesale and because they're only doing retail. You do a lot because you are a fractional CMO and a fractional kind of head of e-commerce. And so throw back to you, what do you want the next steps to be for those that are listening today?
Yeah, well, echo what you said as well. Let me start from there. I really enjoyed this conversation. I've done a few podcast interviews before, but this is probably the most, fun one I've done.
Okay, good. I love it.
I think just because, the conversation, we're having conversation, right? It's not so much a fireside chat or just a one-way conversation. So, but yeah, I think we're the other group is in a very unique position and even in the marketplace. We work with agencies, we work with technology partners, we work with brands. We really sit in the center of a sort of what I call almost like trust entity of economy. So to your point, we work with brands as fractional head of e-commerce or fractional, CMO. We also do tactical work at the retention level because we have the expertise to do so. But more than anything else, I want listeners to kind of, sort of think about what is the omni-channel strategy if you're an omni-channel brand? Are you actually doing it right? Or are you sure you're doing it right? We get requests all the time and say, you know what? We have all these things that we're using. We're doing pay, we're doing this channel, we're using, but I think we're doing well, but that's subjective. What's well, right? Compared to what? So I think that's where we come in and based on my experience being in wholesale, as well as D2C and having the network and community around me to bring the right people, if I'm not the one doing it, to really have let's do an audit to understand, do you have the right strategy in place? 2, do you have the right process in place? 3, do you have the right people in place? And that could be internal or external agencies. So I think those are all the things that we can help a lot of brands on. And I think in the world that we're in right now, where there's constant shifts and also omnichannel is truly a thing. You see D2C companies such as True Classic now selling the products in Costco. Right.
Yeah.
And then wholesale, obviously, digital is always a piece. So the question is, do you have all the right components we just talked about, strategically, high level to all the tech stacks and so on? I think that's where we can bring a lot of value, a trusted partner more than anything else. But last but not least, I want to offer this especially to your listeners, is that, we talk to a lot of folks and we love what we do. So to your listeners, we love to offer anybody that reach out to me or the team a sort of 15-minute audit on the strategy as well as the retention strategy. We can give as much advice as we can during those times and see how we can help.
Yeah, this is amazing. And you know what, I'm going to add to it too. I've been touting about, your career and your past, but we also need to throw a bone out to other team members that you have on there. Queenie being one of them. I mean, she's former Samsung and Disney, ridiculous amount of expertise kind of in that area. And Franz is doing his thing over at Experian for quite a while too. And so he really understands that. Strategically, it's just you have a really good team of people that that know the industry and have worked in the industry for quite a while. And so I appreciate you putting this kind of dream team together and building this business. But then on the flip side, though, it's just leveraging their pasts and your past to really help brands move it forward. And a 15-minute free audit just to kind of say, hey, where are you at today? And is there opportunity here? Can I set you in the right direction? Can I make some warm introductions? Maybe some done-for-you services if that's something that people want. I think you fit the gamut of you just don't know what you don't know. And I think having this quick audit, I think is going to be really powerful for those listening today. So I want to thank you for offering that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to help.
Yeah, this is great. Well, Dennis, thanks again for recording today. It's been really fun. It's so different than our typical team meetings that we used to have years ago. It's fun because always an itinerary. Okay, what's going on with these product updates and how's your merchants looking? And the one-on-ones and stuff. So it's interesting that with full circle now we're quote unquote truly peers that are really trying to help Shopify businesses to grow, scale, improve efficiencies. And I think this is fantastic. So thanks again for recording.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think this is the part of it when we're talking about full circle in retail, but this is also full circle in just from a people to people, right? I think first and foremost, anybody that's been in Shopify currently and also before can also agree. It's just it's a good place to be, and the relationship we build, it's for the long run.
Absolutely. This is lovely. All right. Well, have yourself a great afternoon.
Okay.
Bye.
You too.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.